Well, it's here. It's finally here. Training camp is here. The long wait since the Sun Bowl, the long wait for 6 or 7 or 8 months or however long it's been since football is finally over, and training camp starts today in the South Side. But before they even start to practice, Pitt is already being disrespected. We're talking about the ACC preseason polls and everything else to get you ready for training camp on today's Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, it's Wednesday here on the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's the middle of the week, but more importantly, it's the beginning of training camp. Pitt's football players reported to camp yesterday in the South Side, or reported to the South Side yesterday. It was official report day. Today's the first day of practice. They'll be at it this morning in the South Side, practicing outside at 1 o'clock. Pat Narduzzi will have his first press conference of training camp. A little bit after that, we will talk to the players themselves, a bunch of offensive guys and defensive guys. You're going to see lots of videos and articles and all kinds of content coming out over the next, today and tomorrow and Friday, because this really begins the grind right now. And I appreciate you getting started with the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. I have all those things that I have to usually tell you, but first you might notice what I've got on here. And I know he's playing basketball, but you've got to like that logo. I mean, is that shirt not sweet? And you know who makes it, right? It's our old friends at Home Field. Homefieldapparel.com. I've talked about Home Field before on these podcasts and on these shows. I'm not sure if we ever did it on the Morning Pit, but definitely on the live streams. We've talked about Home Field, and they really are making some of, I'm going to use my own word for it, some of the coolest college gear that you're going to find out there. They've got their licensed collections with more than 150 colleges across the country, so you can find your favorite team, but you can also find sort of interesting, unique ones. I've got my Hawaii Rainbow Warriors sweatshirt that I've worn a bunch of times on the live streams. You guys have seen those as well. You know what Home Field does, kind of like this logo right here. They dig deep. This is a logo from like 1959, this Panther. You see the happy little guy dribbling a basketball? This is from like 1959. They dig into the school's histories and find some really cool and unique logos and markings to put on shirts and make them available for you. And when you go to homefieldapparel.com and you scroll through their collection, like go to their Pitt collection, no, there's not the modern script. There isn't the modern block, but it's all instantly recognizable and it's all instantly classic. It's a classic look. It's vintage is the sort of popular word for it, but it's just a classic look. And I can't recommend them enough. I'm really excited to be partnering with Home Field again this year, to have them back in the mix and be able to talk to you about them a couple times a week. Go to homefieldapparel.com. Check out their Pitt collection. It's outstanding stuff. They just introduced a dad hat, which is awesome. It's a great hat. I need to find a way to get them to send me one of those, and I can wear the dad hat instead of my yellow Pirates hat I've been sporting all summer. You can have that thing on. But it's just, it's great stuff. If you're a Pitt fan, you're looking for some new Pitt shirts for this year, some Pitt sweatshirts, some Pitt joggers, which is another word for sweatpants. I'm learning about fashion. If you're looking for a hat, I mean, they have great stuff there. And what I always say is it's super comfortable and it holds its shape. I mean, t-shirts so often lose their shape. At Home Field, they make high quality stuff. It's super soft, super comfortable, and it holds its shape. So go check it out, homefieldapparel.com. You're gonna hear from me talk. You're gonna hear me talk about them a lot this fall, because if you're a Pitt fan, you need some new gear. That's the place to do it. And if you're a Pitt fan and you want Pitt sports info and all the latest news, the place to do that is at Panther-Lair.com. It's a website below, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. The most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. Football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com, and message boards to interact with hundreds and thousands of other Pitt fans all day, every day at Panther-Lair.com. And of course, our YouTube channel here, which is going to be flooded with content over the next month. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you never miss any of the content. We're going to have videos. We're going to have practice highlights. We're going to have post-practice interviews, Pat Narduzzi press conferences, these Morning Pitt videos, live shows on Wednesday nights, live post-game shows, all kinds of stuff, all right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So if you want to make sure you don't miss any of it, subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll be locked in. So training camp starts today. Going to be practicing in the South Side. A few ACC teams are already at it. Pitt will start this morning, a couple hours from now, I mean, we release these videos around 6 in the morning or 5:30 or something like that. I think they start practice at 9 or 9:30. So in a few hours from the time this video is released, they'll be practicing. But yesterday, we had a little bit of conference news when they released the ACC preseason media poll. And every year I tell myself I'm not going to get caught up in this stuff. And every year I get caught up in this stuff. Pitt picked by the 176 media voters who attended ACC media days. 176 of them voted, and according to their votes, Pitt came in tied for 6th. The votes, of course, go with a point system. Pitt had 1,511 points, tied with your Duke Blue Devils, both picked to finish 6th. Clemson, of course, the runaway favorite to win the conference, followed by Florida State, North Carolina, NC State, and Miami. No surprises there, I don't think. I think if I had told you to pick 5 teams that would finish ahead of Pitt, and in the preseason poll, you would have picked certainly Clemson, Florida State, probably Miami, because we all know that's how it goes. Miami always gets those preseason votes. You likely would have expected North Carolina, and maybe you would have picked NC State. I don't think there's a huge surprise there. I don't think it's a huge surprise that out of 176 first-place votes, Clemson got 103. I don't think it's a huge surprise that another 67 went to Florida State. So 170 out of 176 first-place votes went to Clemson and Florida State, with Carolina getting 5 and NC State getting 1. Go Triangle. But Pitt is 6th. And is that a terribly disrespectful spot for Pitt to be in? Not necessarily. Is this something that Pitt has to, is going to put up on the wall in the locker room? I mean, maybe. It's not a huge blow. I mean, they've been picked to finish 7th, 8th, 10th. A bunch of times over the last 8 years since Pat Narduzzi arrived. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the last 8 years, they've been picked to finish 7th, 8th, or 10th overall in the ACC. They've received the 7th, 8th, or 10th most points in terms of overall finish. But the thing is, and one of those years was 2021 when they were picked to finish 7th and they won the whole thing. But the thing is, every year, Pitt outperforms the expectations. Pitt outperforms the preseason rankings. I mean, virtually every year under Pat Narduzzi. I mean, I could go year by year for you. I mean, it's really bad in the Coastal Division. In 2015, they were picked to finish 6th in the Coastal. They finished 2nd. They had the second best record. 2016, they were picked to finish 3rd. They tied for the second best record. 2017, they were picked to finish 4th, and they ended up tied for the 4th best record in the division. 2018, they were picked to finish 5th, and they won the thing. 2019, they were picked to finish 4th and actually finished with the tied for 3rd best record. 2020, there were no divisions, but 2021, they were picked to finish 4th, and they finished with the best record in the division. In 2022, they were picked to finish 2nd and end up tied for the second best record in the division. So out of 8 years, 7 really, where they had divisional play under Pat Narduzzi, Pitt has never been worse than their preseason projection. They've been equal to their preseason projection twice out of those 7 years, and the other 5, they exceeded their preseason projection. And it's the same thing with overall. If you look at their overall points, of where they place in the preseason poll year by year, Pat Narduzzi's first year in the ACC, they were picked to finish 10th in the conference. Now, I mean, in 2000, I mean, all these years except for the non-division year in 2020, they didn't do a poll of 1 through 14. They did a poll of 1 through 7 for the Atlantic and 1 through 7 for the Coastal. But if you look at point totals, I'm not sure actually if that's how they rank them or not. But if you look at overall point totals, Pitt got the 10th most points in the preseason voting in 2015, and they ended up tied for the 3rd best record in the conference. 2016, they got the 6th most points in the preseason polls, and they tied for the 4th best record in the conference. 2017, they dropped. They were picked to finish 7th in the ACC. They tied for the 9th best record in the conference. That's the year they went 5-7. They had 3 different starting quarterbacks, and they ultimately ended up beating Miami in the season finale. 2018, they were picked to finish 10th in the ACC. They received the 10th most votes in the conference. And ended up tying for the second best record in the league at 6-2. 2019, they were picked to finish 7th. They tied for the 5th best record. 2020, they were picked to finish 8th. They ended up tying for the 6th best record. 2021, they were picked to finish 7th. They won the whole conference and tied with Wake Forest. They both went 7-1 that year. And last year, they were picked to finish 4th, and they ended up tying for the 3rd best record in the league. 8 years under Pat Narduzzi, and only once did they finish at or below the preseason prognostications and expectations and predictions. Now, I don't sit here and claim that, boy, Phil Dracovic is going to be this or that, or some of Pitt's opponents are rated properly or underrated, or this guy's not going to be as good, or this team's not going to be as good, or whatever. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, the defense is just going to reload and they're going to be great right off the bat, and that this team's going to handle a difficult schedule well, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to sit here and say that as why I think that, we might kind of think the ACC media missed the mark on putting Pitt 6th. But what I'll say is this. The ACC media has missed the mark on Pitt every year under Pat Narduzzi. 7 out of 8, they've missed the mark. And it's entirely possible that they got it right this time, or that Pitt's going to be even worse than that. It's always a possibility, particularly when we're dealing with personnel changeover and new quarterback and a bunch of new players on defense. Sure, maybe they'll finish 6th. Maybe they'll finish worse. They'll be 7th or 10th or something. But history has shown us that this team has consistently outperformed its expectations. And I don't know why. I don't know why a lot of things. I don't know why a couple things in this particular instance. I don't know what there is special or unique about Pitt that makes them outperform the expectations. I'm kind of inclined to think that they get underrated. That not necessarily Pitt overperforms, but rather they get underrated. And I don't entirely know why. I think part of it is, Pitt has a reputation for being somewhat mediocre, failing to rise to the occasion, and just sort of generally being in that great unwashed middle of college football. Part of me thinks that maybe some people just don't pay attention. That they just don't pay attention to the fact that Pitt has consistently been one of the best teams in the ACC over the last 8 years. In fact, if you want to break the ACC over the last 8 years into Clemson and everybody else, you can objectively say, and I don't think you really can come up with a good argument against this, that out of that great everybody else, the best team has been Pitt. The number one team has been Pitt. They're the only team, hell, not even just the great everybody else, they're the only team out of those 13 teams who's won the ACC in the last 8 years. They have the best winning percentage out of all of those 13 teams over the last 8 years. There's Clemson, whose winning percentage is something stupid because they've lost 5 games over the last 8 years. 923 winning percentage. Pitt's winning percentage is 621. That's better than any other team in the conference other than Clemson. Again, if we have Clemson and we have everybody else, Pitt has been the best team out of everybody else. They've won the division twice. They've won the conference once. They have more wins. They have a higher winning percentage. And they just happen to be responsible for 2 of those 5 losses that Clemson has taken over the last 8 years. They're the only team that has been able to break through and win an ACC championship during this reign of Clemson's. And they beat Clemson along the way. They didn't beat them in the conference championship game, and it was a down year for Clemson. Clemson went 6-2 that year, the only time they've lost 2 games in a season over these 8 years. But Pitt beat them along the way. I think it's an entirely objective, it's not subjective at all to say that Pitt has been the best team in the conference over the last 8 years, other than after Clemson. I think you can back that up with a lot of data and a lot of stats. And yet, here we are again. Pitt is picked to finish 6th in the conference. 10, 6, 7, 10, 7, 8, 7, 4. Those are, and then 6 now. That's where Pitt has been picked to finish in the ACC over the last 8 years. 10, 6, 7, 10, 7, 8, 7, 4. That 4 was last year. Coming off the ACC championship game, maybe the ACC media bought in, started to buy in just a little bit, picked them to finish 2nd in the Coastal, which means you had to put them ahead of either North Carolina or Miami, which is not something the ACC media likes to do. But they were picked to finish second in the Coastal. They were picked to finish fourth in the ACC. And they tied for the second best record in the Coastal, and they tied for the third best record in the conference. They finally started getting a little bit of respect there, and maybe, maybe Pitt's at times disappointing season cost them a little bit in that respect category, and so now they're back down to being tied for sixth. I think history has shown Pitt will probably outperform that spot. That Pitt will probably finish higher than sixth. When we get to the 3-2-1 column on Friday, I'm going to rehash and regurgitate all the stats that I just laid out, and I'm going to that's going to be my prediction. We do the 3-2-1 column on Friday. We do 3 things we know, 2 questions we have, and 1 prediction. That's going to be the prediction, is Pitt will finish better. Pitt will outperform the preseason ranking. But we'll see. We'll find out in 5 months, right? Or 4 months, I guess. Something even less. We'll find out if they're able to do it. But they've pretty much done it every year under Pat Narduzzi. All right, training camp starts today, and of course all eyes are going to be on those guys right there, the quarterbacks, the guys in the red jerseys. It's all going to be about Phil Dracovic. I mean, all these things we're talking about, can they outperform their expectations? It's all going to be on the arm of Phil Dracovic. And watching some film from his Boston College days lately, just kind of brushing up on some things. I mean, he did some things well. As we talk about Dracovic, and we'll talk about him so much this summer, we have talked about him so much this summer. We will talk about him so much over the month of August. We'll continue talking about him a ton over the throughout the fall. There were, I feel like we've all been very down on him, or at least skeptical, or taking a wait and see approach. But there were things he did really well. There were areas where he excelled, and good plays that he made, and good throws that he made, and areas where he made game-winning types of plays. He just needs to do it on a consistent basis this year. And, coming back to our refrain, which quite frankly was our refrain last year, and it's a refrain this year again, as Phil Dracovic goes, as the quarterback goes, so too will Pitt go. And I think that was absolutely the case last year. And I think we saw it. It's the difference between 8-4 and 10-2. It's a team that could have been 10-2 and should have been 10-2 with better quarterback play and 2 crucially bad losses. But because of that quarterback play, they ended up 8 wins in the regular season as opposed to winning the Coastal and going back to the ACC championship game for the 3rd time. But they lost those 2 games. They lost the Georgia Tech and Louisville games and ended up, largely due to the quarterback play, and ended up where they did. Now, they were able to save the season. They were able to go 9-4, win the Sun Bowl. It was all well and good, but they need that strong quarterback play start to finish. That's the easy, obvious call. Last thing we do have to get to, I got to touch on it real quick. Day-Day Farmer, Rick Darius Farmer, 4-star wide receiver, decommitted from Pitt yesterday, flipped to UCF. I guess he didn't really announce that he was decommitting from Pitt. He just announced that he was committing to Central Florida. So I guess that counts as a decommitment announcement, but he did make that flip. That's something we've talked about for a long time. It's something we've sort of expected for a long time. He committed on Christmas Day and almost immediately was talking about how he was still going to look at other schools and is still going to be open in his recruitment. And he made some comments in the last month or 2 months that he was solid with Pitt, but it was more of a, yeah, we'll believe you on signing day when you put the pen to paper. And now he'll be, presumably putting the pen to paper for Central Florida. That's assuming that commitment sticks longer than the Pitt commitment did, or more than the Pitt commitment did. Not entirely sure if it will. I think that's recruiting in 2024. The biggest problem there is just at the position. Wide receiver, they need another strong class of wide receivers after signing 4 guys last year, 4 good players who I think are going to be good at Pitt. They needed another strong class, and losing a guy like Farmer, I don't know what he's going to be in college, but their class isn't better after having him leave. And so that part stings, because it's not just about losing him, it's about needing receivers. They needed to get more receivers, and they haven't. Now they have one. They have Cameron Montero. they need to find a way to fill up that position group, and not with taking late flyers on guys, but with getting good quality prospects. Zamarian Lang, committed to South Carolina on Sunday. Now Farmer flips to Central Florida. Nicholas Marsh went to wherever, Michigan State. I mean, they've had some targets that they've been in on that they got official visits from, and they just haven't been able to close the deal or hold on to them. And that is a problem. It's a problem. It doesn't doom the class, but I mean, looking more big picture about where the roster stands, good class last year, good group of receivers last year, the guys who are freshmen right now, but you need to keep building on it because there aren't enough numbers on the roster to sort of sustain without following up the 2023 class with a good group in 2024. So it's a less than ideal situation, and I'm not sure what the solution is, short of more transfers. And as we've seen, that can be a mixed bag. So they're going to have to find some more recruiting options, whether it's finding new targets to offer, finding guys to try and flip from other schools. Maybe Central Florida has a receiver they can flip. But they got to add to this class. They got to get, I think, at least – I think they need 2 more receivers in this recruiting class, but – I mean, at least 1 to start with, but you'd like to get up to 3 eventually. We'll see what they're able to do. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to get ready to head down to the South Side. Jim Hammett from Panther-Lair.com, he's going to be down there as well. So we're going to have lots of coverage from the South Side from practice this morning, the press conferences, and media day this afternoon. And then it's on. It's all the grind. They have next open practice for the media is on Friday, so we're going to have a lot to do today, and then we'll be busy on Friday as well. And it's just day to day in training camp. It's the grind, and we look forward to it. Make sure you stay tuned to Panther-Lair.com for all the coverage, though. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com to never miss any of our exclusive Pitt video content. Make sure you subscribe here to YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Just segued right from the website into the YouTube channel. But you guys know what to do. You know the website to check out, and you know that the YouTube channel right here to like this video and subscribe, so you don't miss anything that we have. It's going to be a lot of Pitt content over the next month heading into the season. You don't want to miss any of it, so make sure you follow all of it and go to homefieldapparel.com to get the sweetest Pitt gear you can find. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Hope you have a great Wednesday. Can't wait to get this started with training camp, and we will talk to you tomorrow for the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.